Welcome to Soccer Morning on World Soccer Talk. Here's your host, Jason Davis.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Welcome into Soccer Morning here on WorldSoccerTalk.com. Yep, we are live. We did fix our technical issues from Monday, and we are back on the air, and I appreciate your patience, basically. That's where we are on a Tuesday morning. Big show for you today. Luke Moore from the Football Ramble will join us in just a bit to go over some of the happenings in England. Certainly yesterday's game, which I'm going to get to here momentarily, is top of mind for English football fans and fans of English football, and we will do all of that. It's also a momentous day anniversary-wise in the world of European football. Perhaps we'll talk to Luke about the effect of the event that happened 20 years ago. I'll hit all of that in the news. Here's the schedule. Luke's going to arrive on this program at 9:40 a.m. Eastern Time, which means that when we get done with the news this morning, we'll open up the phone lines and we'll give you a chance for about a half an hour to jump on board, talk about whatever is on your mind on a Tuesday. Again, there's that momentous anniversary. There's a couple of things happening in the world of FIFA governance, which is, whatever. But there's that. There's the Club World Cup. Are we excited about the Club World Cup and a super fantastic tournament? Okay, let's hit the news. Here we go. Leicester beating Chelsea 2-1 yesterday to go back top of the Premier League table. Riyad Mahrez, doing the honors with a stunning winning goal. Jose Mourinho, after the match, talking very candidly, admitting that the fourth place, any chance at a top four finish, is gone for the Blues. Talking about his hard work being betrayed by the players at Chelsea. It does not feel good at Chelsea at the moment. You have to wonder how much will Roman Abramovich has to let go of Jose Mourinho right now, or if this is something that has to be done at the end of the season. They'll have to just see this one out. A report from the Press Association Sport suggests Michel Platini and Sepp Blatter could both receive long bans for their role in that payment to Michel Platini that Sepp Blatter signed off on in 2011, a 2 million Swiss franc payment to the UEFA president. The ban could be as long as 7 years. Now, the report says it's unlikely that they will get a lifetime ban, which requires proof of corruption, but a shorter ban, which could be 7 years again, is likely at this point, at least per these reports. Both of them have denied any wrongdoing. In fact, Sepp Blatter has taken the step of writing a letter to all of FIFA's 209 member associations protesting his innocence and criticizing FIFA's ethics committee ahead of the hearings. Blatter will have his hearing Thursday. Platini will have his hearing on Friday, and a decision is expected by Monday. Now, on Monday, we could wake up to Michel Platini no longer being allowed to run for FIFA president in 2016. That would certainly change the nature of that race, although there are some candidates emerging beyond the pack here that are not UEFA president Michel Platini. Now, we will see again whether or not Sepp Blatter recedes into the background or if he continues to rage against the dying of the light as he is wont to do. Speaking of FIFA, Steven Gerrard, Andrea Pirlo, and Xavi Hernandez have been stopped from playing in a friendly in Kuwait due to a FIFA ban. The Kuwaiti FA was suspended by FIFA in October because of government interference. The ban from international competition extends to active players registered with clubs from taking part in the Football Champions Tour friendly in Kuwait on Friday against the local all-star team. That means Pirlo and Gerrard, who both play Major League Soccer, and Xavi, who is based in Qatar, are no longer able to participate. This is, again, I don't know the situation in Kuwait necessarily, but this is, again, the weirdness of FIFA bringing a ban down on a member association for government interference when, in fact, FIFA makes everything political. It's part of the ridiculous thing about FIFA. Barcelona, as I mentioned, the Club World Cup in Japan. Barcelona has arrived. The Champions League winners will face Guangzhou Evergrande on Thursday in the semifinals. River Plate will take on, I'm going to say this, Sanfrecce, I believe, of Japan in the other semifinal. So River Plate, Sanfrecce on Wednesday. Barcelona and Guangzhou Evergrande on Thursday. There's a fifth place match happening on Wednesday as well. Club America from Mexico and TP Mazembe from Africa. You also have in this tournament, Auckland City from Oceania. They were knocked out by San Frecce in the very first round of the tournament. It's a weird tournament. It doesn't mean anything. Nobody seems to care. But Club America falling flat as they did in their first game, certainly not a good thing for CONCACAF. All right, finally, today, as I mentioned, an anniversary, the 20th anniversary of the decision around Bosman, the Bosman decision coming down 20 years ago in 1995. Of course, Jean-Marc Bosman went to court to secure his release from his team RFC Liège in his home country of Belgium. And wanted to join a French outfit. He was restricted from doing so. There was a transfer fee required for players who were out of contract. The Bosman ruling allowed for players who were out of contract to move freely. Again, we'll probably bring this up with Luke Moore, talk about the impact of the Bosman ruling 20 years later. It's effectively the free agency of European football and has made a big difference in the way players have moved around teams since then. All right, here we go. Let's take a break. When we come back, we will open up the phone lines for you on a Tuesday. Let you get your say in right here on World Soccer Talks Soccer Morning. I'm Jason Davis. We'll be right back. There you go.
Welcome back to Soccer Morning on World Soccer Talk with Jason Davis.
All right, we're back on Soccer Morning on a Tuesday. We have time for your phone calls. We'd like to get them in. Let's do that right now. 646-832-3909 is the phone number. You can also hit us up at Soccer Morning on Twitter. Just reviewing my tweets from the last, 24 hours or so. We got a bunch of discussion that we had yesterday over at SiriusXM FC about Jermaine Jones and his suspension, 6 games from MLS, which also could impact his ability to play for the U.S. men's national team. He has to serve that suspension before he's eligible to play internationally. Whether or not this means the end of things for him in MLS remains to be seen. Let's see. We've got JT making his choices for women's and men's player of the year for U.S. Soccer. The men, Clint Dempsey, and the women, Carly Lloyd for him. Again, Becky Sauerbrunn definitely in with a shout there for the women. Let's see. Lucho Lalo about Miami FC. I answered that over at SiriusXM. I got a couple of other things here. My friend Luis Bueno out in LA says can't switch the calendar. Can't switch the MLS calendar from where it currently is, which is obviously a spring, late winter, early spring start all the way into December. And the reason that came up again is because of the television ratings for the MLS Cup final, which were terrible for a lot of reasons, but mostly because they went up against the NFL and got crushed. And that's just par for the course when it comes to MLS these days. And as the league continues to try to transition itself into a big-time sporting competition, it's going to need more of that TV revenue, and it's going to need more TV ratings to prove that it's a viable product for TV companies. Of course, we did have that interview over at Philly.com that John Tannenwald, the goalkeeper, conducted with Scott Guglielmino about the future of ESPN and MLS and the TV partners and how they view these things, and whether or not there's going to be changes in the offing. I don't think a calendar switch is coming anytime soon, but there may be some changes in the way that they handle that MLS Cup final. Could be on a weeknight. Certainly there's some logistical things. I mean, no matter what you do, this is the situation MLS finds itself in. No matter what you do, there is going to be a logistical problem. There's going to be someone that you're pissing off as you make a decision to change the way it's currently presented. And it's not that it's good now and everybody's on board, but I suppose if you're MLS, you're trying to find the path of least resistance when it comes to putting out your product, especially an MLS Cup final. I mean, let's be honest, that's supposed to be the biggest game of the year, supposed to be the biggest ratings of the year, and it's not even coming close. And that sort of demands action, but at the same time, if we flip the calendar and now we've got to play through a winter, that's a logistical problem. We've got you're going up against more of the NFL really than you were before. Now let's see what else is on the table if you switch the calendar. I mean, there's so many other. It's just a matter of changing the minds of those television companies who signed on because they were able to slot that inventory in certain places. All right. 646-832-3909. See, as soon as I talk about this, as soon as I bring this issue up, and again, I'm presenting some of the logistical issues. I'm not necessarily advocating one way or the other in this particular moment. I have said that I don't think a season switch makes a lot of sense. Producer Trevor is all on board for a season switch and wants to debate me behind the scenes using the chat that we use to communicate during the show. So you guys get me momentarily distracted as he throws out his arguments. Because yes, the regular season would go up against the NFL as opposed to the playoffs, which would not. Yes, that is certainly a benefit of flipping the season. There's also another benefit, and this is advocated by many people out there, especially former players like Eric Winalda, and that's lining up the transfer windows with Europe so that the players in MLS and going in and coming out of MLS can move within those windows. That would certainly be a benefit to the league. 646-832-3909. Taking you up to 9:40 here, when we will grab Luke Moore from the world-famous Football Ramble, talking about the English Premier League, certainly talking about Chelsea, certainly talking about Bosman, Jean-Marc Bosman, and the impact that the decision over his fight to be able to move freely. I mean, here's the thing about Bosman, too. He did not benefit at all from that decision. By the time the decision came down in 1995, his career was over. He was 30 years old, but his career was done. He was always a kind of a fringe player anyway. I'm going to read directly from the write-up over at World Soccer Talk, but this is actually from the AFP, I believe. Back in 1990, Bosman, then 25, wanted to leave RFC Liège in his homeland of Belgium to join French outfit Dunkirk. Bosman was out of contract, but Dunkirk refused to meet Liège's asking price, and so the Belgians blocked his transfer. As he was no longer a first-team player, Liège reduced his salary. The player himself believed this was a breach of his rights, considering European football's governing body UEFA to be applying the rules that contravened the free circulation of labor as was enshrined in European Union law and took his case to the European Court of Justice. And here we are, 20 years later. And, lots of questions as to whether or not the Bosman ruling, which certainly is fair from a player's perspective, certainly is the right thing to do under the European laws, just as Curt Flood and the striking down of the reserve clause in baseball was the right thing for workers' rights. Certainly, the NFL has gotten restricted free agency and moved it, into a broader type of free agency. But still, I don't think the NFL has complete unfettered free agency, if I'm not mistaken. As was pointed out, since we're talking about free agency in MLS, obviously free agency has never been a thing until 2015. We've got our first free agent signing in Justin Mapp. Is it going to be momentous? We'll have to see. I think history will tell us whether or not that sort of free agency, the restricted free agency of MLS, and the signing of Justin Mapp as the first ever free agent turns out to be a momentous thing that we'll be talking about 20 years from now. But certainly, it's notable that MLS got free agency. The players got free agency without a work stoppage or taking or a court decision. In this case, so Bosman obviously was the guinea pig here, and eventually, the rest of the footballing world benefited from his decision to take his fight to court, even though he did not himself directly benefit. Bosman's destitute at this point. Destitute. I mean, he spent some time in jail recently. He's got no cash. It says here, Bosman is destitute, although he says he regrets nothing. That day, footballers who had until then been commodities became workers, free and in charge of their own destiny, added Bosman. He came away from the ECJ ruling with 400,000 euros, but that was soon blown on lawyers' fees, tax, and poor investment decisions. Bosman fell into depression and alcoholism, and he was even sentenced to a year in jail in 2013 for assaulting his former girlfriend and her daughter. He remains out of work and doesn't get any social aid. However, FIFPro, the International Federation of Professional Footballers, is said to be ready to come to his assistance and give Bosman a job. The rules have changed, and Europe has since seen a massive influx of players from elsewhere in the world, to the point that less than half the players currently plying their trade in Belgium are Belgians. And this is obviously the other side of the Bosman ruling. Is once you open up those markets to players on the basis of free trade and free worker movement, now you have that other you have the impact of that being the influx of foreign players. 646-832-3909. Guys need to wake up this morning. I know it's only Tuesday. Christmas is next week for those of you who celebrate that. We've got Hanukkah going on. We've got, it's just the December lull, right? There's a December. Is it me or is there a December lull? Maybe it's because MLS is over. I don't know. I mean, I'm fascinated by the Leicester story. I continue to be fascinated by that. Fascinated by Chelsea on the other side. Since those two teams played yesterday, we'll talk about them. Fascinated by what could be a pretty remarkable Premier League table at the end of the campaign. Fascinated by what else? What else is fascinating out there? Are there a bunch of lists I should be reading towards the end of the year? It is almost the end of 2015. Where's my 2015? The best stories, biggest stories of 2015. Oh, they definitely exist, right? The biggest soccer. I'm going to just type this into Google. You guys are going to get me doing this live here on the air. I did not prep this at all. I thought you might call me. 646-832-3909. Okay. We haven't gotten to the best soccer stories of 2015 yet. Because when I type this in, I'm still getting 2014 stuff. Okay. So we don't. I don't think we have. We don't have a whole list. I do have from the Orlando Business Journal top Orlando City Soccer Club stories of the year. Oh, okay. Here are the biggest stories of the year from Orlando City. Orlando City Soccer reveals new plans for the downtown stadium. Orlando City Soccer Club scores big with MLS opener. Walt Disney World, Orlando City Soccer, Inc. new multi-year partnership. Orlando City add Sherwin-Williams as stadium partner. Oh, okay, those are all business stuff. That's kind of boring. It's kind of boring. Let's go to Randall in Florida. What's up, Randall?
Nothing much. Jason, how's it going?
It's going well. You want to talk about the Foxes?
Yes, I do. Has there been anything like this in soccer? I mean, I came into the soccer boat pretty late, unfortunately, so I don't really know that much about Premier League history.
Well, okay, so the Premier League is 25-ish years old. 1992, I think, was the first. 1993 was the first season of the Premier League. Trevor, correct me if I'm wrong on that. I mean, before that, there was a first division in England. It was a sort of a different thing. The reason the Premier League exists is because the teams at the time that were in the top division said, hey, we can go get more TV money if we band together and sort of make our own thing, and that's what they did. So the Premier League is, sort of a revision of top division in England, built around the idea that they could be better economically. And then, of course, that's proven to be true. They are massive. The first year was founded in 1992. I'm guessing 92, 93 was the first season. All right, so I think that you probably have to go back to Blackburn winning in 1994, 95 and Blackburn they weren't a skinflint team. I mean, they weren't working on a small budget. They ended up blowing all of it in order to go win that Premier League title, and sort of dissipated and fell into the background. I mean, where's Blackburn right now? What division is Blackburn in, Trevor? Anybody know?
I want to say they're in League One right now.
Are they in League One? No, they're in the Championship.
Oh.
Okay, they are in the Championship. They finished 9th last year. They're in the Championship. All right. So, and that Blackburn is a club that probably should be in the Premier League, but is going to yo-yo a bit, right? So, but they're the last team that you could look at because look at the list of champions. United, Blackburn in 94, 95, United, Arsenal, United, Arsenal, Arsenal, Chelsea, United, Chelsea, United, City, new money, lots of money. Can't be compared to Leicester at all. United, City, Chelsea. Those are your champions in 23 years of the Premier League, whatever it's been. So I don't think this has ever happened in England. Now, I don't know. We could go through the Rolodex here and think about whether or not it's happened in other places. I mean, the Spanish league has changed a little bit over the course of the modern era, and now you don't have the variety of champions you used to have in Spain. I mean, Atletico Madrid winning a title was a big deal, in part because that doesn't happen anymore. Let's see, what else? Where else? I mean, Germany, maybe if you want to throw. I mean, I don't know. I don't think so, man. I really don't. I think in terms of the leagues that are stratified the way that the Premier League is, I don't know that this has happened recently.
All right.
Anything else, Randall? I mean, are you the type of person who is excited to see somebody breaking up that exclusive party, or are you sort of are you a fan of one of the big clubs? I mean, where do you fall?
Well, I started out enjoying Manchester United mainly because I didn't have a team close by. Then I started looking at Orlando in the 3rd division and just fell in love with them.
Okay, well, that's fine. You could be an Orlando City fan and also have a team in England. There's nothing wrong with that necessarily. But have you stopped caring as much about United because of Orlando City?
Yes.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, sometimes there's only room in our heart for one team, Randall. I totally get that. I appreciate the call and I appreciate you listening. If you got anything else, let me know.
One other thing. Is there any sport within the United States that actually has the rules for money that the same way the soccer leagues do, where you're pretty much able to spend like crazy? Because I'm thinking the only sport we have is baseball.
Yeah, baseball, the only thing that baseball's got is a luxury tax. If you spend over, I think it's $200 million. If you spend over $200 million on your payroll, maybe it's even less than that, you have to pay into a fund that is then divvied out among the other teams in the league. So that's the only. It's sort of a penalty for spending way more than anybody else. But that's it. I mean, I think baseball is pretty unrestricted. So I would say baseball. Hockey's got a cap. NFL's obviously got a cap. NBA's got a cap and got rules on contracts. So, yeah, I mean, it's baseball, and that's about it.
Okay. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Randall. Good stuff, man. Randall from Florida calling in. And Leicester City is a fantastic story. I mean, we're going to find out, as I was sort of been addressing throughout the course of the last couple of weeks. We are going to find out whether or not Leicester City can hang on here And if they're they look for real. I think it'd be wrong to say that they're not for real. But at the same time, you look at their upcoming fixture list. You look at the history of the Premier League, and you wonder if they're going to fade. Here's their next. So they just beat Chelsea at home. Okay, Leicester City was at home and they beat Chelsea 2-1. Again, fantastic goal to win it from Mahrez. They've got Everton at Goodison Park, Liverpool at Anfield. Then they host Manchester City and they host Bournemouth to close out the festive period. That's that's a pretty difficult run. I mean, and look, Bournemouth, the way this league is working, Bournemouth is a potential letdown game, a trap game that they have to watch out for. Bournemouth beat Manchester United, so these things can happen. Bournemouth beat Chelsea. Paulo Toledo's helping me out here. Plenty of news. European draw. Yeah, we haven't. You know what? Here's what happened. Okay, so I intended to go into the European draw, the Champions League draw, the Liga MX final, Jordan Morris, which we did a little bit on Sirius XM FC yesterday. I intended to go into all of that stuff on yesterday's program, and then we had the technical issue, and weren't able to do the web show. So that's why I didn't get to all of that, and I didn't know if we were I don't like doing stuff after it's old, and I feel like today we're into the window where that stuff is now old, but maybe not. Maybe we should talk about the European draw, the European Championship draw. Maybe we should talk about the Champions League draw, which is really rough on Arsenal again. And PSG got Chelsea again, and we just talked to Jonathan Johnson. When was that, Trevor? Late last week. We talked to Jonathan Johnson and asked him, about the draw for PSG, and basically said as long as it's not Chelsea or Barcelona. We've seen these teams. Well, I guess they were in Barcelona's group, right? As long as it's not Chelsea. Oh, they were in Madrid's group. Okay, so it's been Barcelona in the past, and here it is. It's Chelsea again, and it's like, wow. Do we really need this matchup again? Robert in L.A., what's up, my friend?
Hey, good morning, Jason. Hey, here's something you can talk about that happened over the weekend. Club America crashed out of the Club World Cup to the Chinese champions.
Yeah, I saw the score. I didn't see any of the game. I'm sure that timing-wise, that was really tough for people on this side of the world to watch. I don't know how seriously how seriously did they take it, Robert? Because, that obviously matters. It's a long flight. It's a weird tournament. I don't know. On one hand, I sort of want to go, ha. On the other hand, I don't care.
Well, if you were watching the division, they're all calling for the coach's head. Pretty much saying it was a complete failure since they lost. They're saying if they can at least make it to the semifinals, at least they were looking forward to that match against Barcelona. Because the other teams in the past, Mexican teams, like last year Cruz Azul and Montreal a couple years before that, they at least always made it to the semifinals where they will lose to the European team or the South American team. But pretty much Mexican media is calling for the coach's head. Pretty much the way he was already under pressure because the way they crashed out of the playoffs, the semifinal Liga MX playoffs, and they had the match, and then they pretty much gave it up in the last 5 minutes. Remember how Orlando City wanted to get that Brazilian player, Rubinho? He scored the first goal, and then ex-Tottenham first flop, Paulinho, scores the game winner in the last minute. So,
yeah, if it's about they're losing in the Liga playoffs, Robert, then I understand maybe firing the coach. Who is it again? Name escapes me. Too many things to hold inside my head. But if it's about the playoffs, okay, maybe there's some reason to fire him. But if it's about the Club World Cup, come on, nobody cares about that. Even if you have this notion that Mexican teams want to go and show well and get that game against the European champs, in this case Barcelona, you still don't fire a guy because of his performance in the Club World Cup.
maybe it's the way they performed. I think maybe the performance than the actual result.
Yeah, I suppose that's possible. If you say that they came out flat, that they didn't show any heart, that they didn't represent Mexican football and Club America very well on that end, then perhaps I guess you could go with that. Robert, appreciate the call, man.
Oh, yeah, one more thing. Did you talk about the Liga MX final? That was crazy.
I did not. I didn't get to see. Here's the thing. I didn't get to see the second leg for personal reasons. I had stuff going on in my life. I didn't get to see the second leg. I know Pumas made a complete and utter comeback, which was stunning. When I saw the score, I was stunned, Robert. I mean, to see that Pumas had come back from 3-0 and then ended up, 4-1, and then they had to go to penalties, and obviously Tigres won on penalties.
Pretty much stoppage time goals, which resulted in extra time and then going to penalties. So it was actually exciting compared to the first. Like everyone thought it was going to be a letdown, and then once they got the first one, you're like, oh wait, this could happen. And then they got the second one, and then that's when it got full on crazy. But that's what I want to talk about. Thanks for taking my call.
All right, thanks, Robert. I mean, the Liga MX final was spectacularly dramatic, in part because it was a 3-0 lead for Tigres going into the second leg. And then Pumas made a big comeback, and from what I saw, Gignac scored a goal in extra or at added time or towards the death of that game in order to keep Tigres ahead or to get them back. I can't remember which one. Let's go to Patrick in Pennsylvania. What's up?
Hey, Jason. I usually call from South Carolina, but just got back here yesterday from the College Cup after heading home.
Oh, you sound so depressed, Patrick.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not the result I wanted, but anyway, first off, hats off to Stanford. I mean, they played an incredible game. Jordan Morris is an incredible player. They have a lot of other incredible players on that team, too, but definitely not the ending I was hoping for.
No, certainly not. But, I mean, to make a final, pretty remarkable stuff. I imagine Clemson will be back next year.
I certainly hope so. I mean, if you look at the way the program had been building ever since we hired Mike Noonan, I mean, we were kind of at the bottom of the ACC, after we had a lot of great years. I mean, we obviously had players like Stu Holden and Yuchian Yelu, not too long ago, but, after those guys left, we kind of had a bit of a rough period, and, now we're sort of enjoying some success again. Last year we had an amazing one in the ACC tournament, and this year, pretty remarkable to get to the final. So pretty happy. If I can also give a quick shout out to our women's team that's had a lot of the same success. Where we hired a new coach not too long ago. They were in an even worse state than the men's team was, and this year they made the ACC tournament, which we hadn't done in forever, despite the fact that they shortened the field to just 4 teams for the women's tournament. So, still pretty happy about the season. Okay,
there you go. Appreciate the call, Patrick, and we'll be watching to see if Clemson can get back and maybe some changes coming to college soccer. Maybe not. Let's go to Daniel in Atlanta. What's up, Daniel? Daniel, are you there? There you are. There you are, Daniel. Hi, Daniel.
Hey. I just wanted to say that I was reading an article on my way home from work yesterday, and it was funny because I'm thinking LA needs a new goalkeeper. And I don't mind seeing Brian Rowe as the goalkeeper, but I was reading this off of LA Confidential, and I want to give credit to Tyler, who wrote it. And it was funny because he was giving us some scenarios for how we should get Dan Kennedy. And one of the funniest things I read was trading Omar, who has a no-trade clause, in order to get a 33-year-old goalkeeper. And I don't know. I just thought it was pretty funny to trade a player of his high caliber, high talent, and get somebody who's been in the league for a while.
Right. Well, I mean, they ended up getting Dan Kennedy, and what was traded for him?
That's what I don't know. I can't find it anywhere.
Yeah, well, I mean, it being MLS, we don't know exactly. We never know exactly what's going on here because MLS doesn't disclose they don't disclose anything.
I don't think. Did we get rid of a player? Because if we did, I would have read about it. But probably some money. But other than that, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to look here. I don't know. I mean, I don't even know. Is this official?
I don't know if it's official. That's why
It seems
I came
weird.
on to say how ridiculous it sounded.
I heard it, and now I'm seeing is rumor or could be or reports. Okay, here we go. Galaxy Land's Dan Kennedy, host to Kibo Omar Gonzalez from the LA Times. Kevin Baxter over there. I'm trying to find it. Just give me a couple of minutes. I mean, maybe not. I mean, I can't hold you on the air while I try to find this, Daniel. We'll just have to buy that something happened. That they traded something, probably TAM. Everybody's going to trade their TAM for stuff like this.
No, why would LA get rid of their TAM for Dan Kennedy?
Well, I mean, if they can trade some TAM,
reuse it on Omar.
They can trade some TAM, but not all of their TAM. They don't have to trade it all, Daniel.
Then congratulations to Justin Mapp for being the first free agent.
Yeah.
You know, just makes me happy to be a supporter of MLS and seeing that we finally have some sort of free agency.
Some sort of free agency. Daniel, I got to go, man. Appreciate the phone call.
No problem. Have a good day.
Daniel in Atlanta, so we will step aside and come back. Grab our friend, grab our friend Luke Moore from the Football Ramble. Talk some English football. 20 years of the Bosman rule. Let's do that. Soccer Morning, WorldSoccerTalk.com.
Welcome back to Soccer Morning on World Soccer Talk with Jason Davis.
All right, we are back on the air. We are talking now to Luke Moore from the Football Ramble. Talking English football. We'll probably verge into some European topics as well. Luke, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Let's talk about the Premier League. Let's talk about Leicester City. Again, winners over Chelsea yesterday, 2-1, and the story continues. Both sides in this particular case. The good things for Leicester, the good things for Claudio Ranieri, the bad things for Jose Mourinho.
Yeah, it was a fascinating game, wasn't it? I sort of thought it would be, knowing that going into it, Mourinho wouldn't have been able to sort of play for a draw against a good team. I mean, if Leicester were in the position they're in and Chelsea was still up there as well, I think Mourinho would have been like, they're a good team, they're playing well, we get a draw out of this, that's fine, they're going to drop away at some point, so we'll just keep going. And because of the position Chelsea.
Okay, so we just had an issue with Skype, which we thought we fixed, but did not. So that's a Skype problem that I'm not going to be too happy about. Let's see if we can take a quick break. Trevor, can we do that? We'll do this no music. We'll take a quick break. We'll get Luke Moore back on the air momentarily. It's Soccer Morning, WorldSoccerTalk.com. All right, we're back on Soccer Morning. Apologies for that quick interruption there. Skype thing could not be helped. Luke Moore's with us from the Football Ramble, and we were setting this up. We were talking about Jose Mourinho and his approach there at Leicester.
Yeah, I wasn't that boring, was I, Jason? I thought you hung up on me then.
No, certainly not. Certainly not.
I was just saying that it was interesting because we knew that Mourinho and Chelsea would have to go and try and win this game, which then would lead to a really open encounter. And given Leicester's confidence and their appearing lack of respect for opponents, I suppose, at the moment, meant they were going to attack as well. And that's what we saw, and it was a fascinating game. And Chelsea had the lion's share of possession, in fact, but it looked like Leicester were the only team that were going to win it. And it really is fascinating now to see what Chelsea do, what moves they make next.
You give me a sense from what you've seen of Leicester, how they've managed to do this, because someone I follow on Twitter, I can't remember who it was, threw out a stat that and stats aren't the end all be all, of course, but they threw out a stat that the team with the one of the teams, something about lowest pass completion percentage at home is Leicester against maybe against the top teams or something like that. But it just goes to show you that despite Leicester's success, they're not necessarily a team that's coming out and bossing a game.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of questions wrapped up in one now. I think the main question is how they're doing what they're doing. Now, I'm not an expert on Leicester particularly, but from what I've seen, they're defending as a unit. It's not always working because there are some teams in the Premier League that can score goals, and I think in a way Ranieri's almost made his peace with that. He's made a sort of plea for more clean sheets from Leicester earlier in the season. They're not really getting that, but they're still outscoring everyone else, and they've got probably three of the best players in the Premier League on form at the moment, in the shape of Kante and Vardy and Mahrez. Mm-hmm. And so if the defenders can defend as a unit and really defend as a group rather than defend individually, and then they can transition the ball quickly through, and players like Vardy and Mahrez and Kante with such confidence can hurt teams. And look at Mahrez yesterday; he was virtually unplayable. Not really an awful lot anyone can do about it, to be honest. And I think they should just be concentrating on riding this wave for as long as they can. They've got 3 tough games coming up. If they come out the back of those next 3, it's still on top of the table then. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's officially on. No team has finished lower than 4th with this early points total they've got now. So they could already be massively upsetting the apple cart already. So it would be interesting to see how they can close it out. I think they're projected to get about 82 or 83 points this season, which in 2011 would have been enough to win the Premier League. And I think for the last few seasons it would have been enough to finish at least third, possibly even second. But they're doing it with a lot of confidence. And actually, just finally, confidence is a huge part of football. If we look at the players that Chelsea had on paper yesterday, they're just not playing with any sort of confidence at all. And as soon as they concede a goal, their heads go down. They're not striking the ball properly. They're not counter-attacking with any intent or any verve. And the result is what you see.
Speaking of top four finishes, Jose had to admit after that match in his post-game comments that fourth is basically gone for Chelsea. Now that may seem like, well, yeah, of course it is, but in order for Chelsea to continue to trudge along here and not completely collapse, I imagine they had to at least present the possibility that something like that was open to them, because this is Chelsea. They don't, they're not shooting for seventh.
Yeah, I don't know if he knows which way to turn, to be honest. I think he feels like he's tried everything, and now maybe he's trying stick approach rather than the carrot, and sort of trying to give these players a little bit of a kick up the backside and see if that works. But the problem for Mourinho is when he sort of bases his strategy around an unbreakable bond of trust between a handful of core players, and then that trust is broken somehow, he doesn't really have any way to turn. I mean, people have said to me this morning, why isn't he playing young players? Well, two reasons. One, because you can only register a certain amount of players in the Premier League unless they've been coached and trained through the British system. I don't know how many of Chelsea's players have. And secondly, because he's got no record at all of bringing young players through, because he essentially doesn't really include young players in his strategy. This is a man who's used to deal with elite players, and pretty much elite players only. There's been examples in the past of him essentially ruining young prospects at Inter and to a lesser extent Real Madrid. So he's not going to have that option open to him. Gone are the days for Mourinho where he could just play a lot of young players and say, let's see how these guys get on. Well, he can't do that anymore.
Yeah, and now he's got even more problems because it looks like Eden Hazard is injured, and Jose's talking about it perhaps being a serious injury. I haven't seen anything this morning about the prognosis for Hazard, but he's been an important player for them. They lose him, it just adds to the problems for Jose trying to pick a team that can win some games.
I mean, partly I agree with that, but the other side of it is that Hazard's been terrible. So, I mean, it might even be a blessing in disguise that he's not available, because he might have to rethink it and do things in a slightly different way, which might work for him. But the other reason he can't play young players as well, just to go back to that, is because it's not really an environment for them. You can't go to a group of young players, even if you can register them to play in the Premier League, or even if they are registered, and say, right, you're playing on Saturday, 4 or 5 of you, you're all playing. By the way, if you lose, we're in the relegation zone. Chelsea, in the relegation zone in the middle of December. What sort of pressure is that for young? It can't happen. He's got nowhere to turn. In a way, Mourinho is essentially very slowly and very publicly being hoisted by his own petard. And not really an awful lot he can do about it, because he's relying on these players to pull him out of it. And these are players that it looks like he's completely isolated and made, by the look of it, fairly unhappy.
While Chelsea continues to struggle and certainly is tumbled down the table into a shocking position, Manchester United has maintained a spot at least hovering around the top of the table with an idea that they might be able to go for a title this year, Luke, and then they do something like go and lose to Bournemouth. And, in light of the Champions League failure, there's certainly a lot of questions now about Louis van Gaal and his immediate future. Is this a situation where you could see him getting the sack?
Tough one. I don't know if a real top manager, which they would be after, would come at this time of the year. I mean, it's only half of the solution, isn't it? Firing a manager, you've got to find another one. If you can't find someone who's got the wherewithal and the history and the experience to manage a club the size of United, because it's not just managing a team, it's managing a club. They're a global brand, Moyes was completely blindsided by how big the job was. Van Gaal isn't. I mean, for all his faults, he is a big club manager, so that's why part of the reason he's there. They can't fire Van Gaal unless they have someone lined up to take over. And I don't think someone who are the candidates? Ancelotti, he's probably not going to go this time of year. Guardiola definitely won't go. Mourinho, they'd be close to hire Mourinho at the moment. So I would say the short answer to that is no.
Well, at this point in the season, as you said, they end up probably with a caretaker, at least for a little while, and then that probably ends up falling to somebody like Giggs. And I don't know that I mean, certainly I don't think Giggs should put himself in that position. I don't know that he would have. I don't know if he would have the stones to turn it down, though.
It's possible. I mean, they could bring Giggs through and get him to caretaker for the end of the season again, because he caretakered a while before, didn't he?
Yeah.
Fair enough. They could do that. That's definitely an option for them. Van Gaal's painting himself into a bit of a corner. I mean, he's not exactly sort of towing the party line, is he? I mean, he's not saying the right things when they get beaten. He's not admitting any sort of defeat at all or any sort of mistakes he's made at all, which isn't endearing him to the fan base. And then, of course, they're playing this sort of terrible brand of sort of non-adventurous football, which is a no-no, especially at United. Because defensively they've been fairly solid. I mean, they made mistakes against Bournemouth, but generally they've been solid. I think they've got the best defensive record in the Premier League. So overall, defensively they've been okay, especially with the injuries they've got. But going forward, they look terrible, and that is a cardinal sin at Old Trafford. It'd be very, very interesting to see what happens over the Christmas period, where those games come thick and fast. When we come into the new year, if United are still in the top four, then I mean, might be enough to keep them in the job anyway.
Yeah. Well, what do you make of at this point? What do you make of Wayne Rooney and his lack of production? Is sort of the question of whether or not he should be as big of a figure in this team as he remains, and certainly, as he reaches this point in his career, people are starting to question whether or not he fully met all of the potential he showed all those years ago at Everton.
Yeah, I guess I'll sort of take two questions in now. The answer to the first one is that he shouldn't be in the team, and he shouldn't be a shoo-in for the England team either, not given how other players are playing in that position. But he's Wayne Rooney, and Wayne Rooney is a huge star in the UK, for those of your listeners who don't know, and he always will be. And so his reputation precedes him, and he stays in the team as part of that. He needs time out of the team. He's in unquestionably the worst form he's been in his entire career. And a lot of people think that he's burnt out. He started so early, so young, but he's essentially finished, and it's a downward spiral from now on. In terms of the potential, it's possibly a bit harsh. I mean, he's won pretty much everything he can win at club level, and in some cases more than once. At international level, he's not performed, not achieved, but then no one has at England really for 50 years. So, I mean, it's a bit unfair to beat him with that particular stick. Time will tell. I mean, he's probably going to finish his career as Man United's all-time top scorer, and they're the biggest club, arguably, in the history of football. So, it depends which way you look at it, I suppose.
Very tough on Wayne Rooney. All right, before I have to let you go, Luke, let's just touch on two draws, both of them happening in the last couple of days. I'll go back to the Euro Championships and the European draw for France 2016, and just get your take on. Certainly on England's group as they end up with Russia, Wales, and Slovakia, and then broader. Is there a group of death in this tournament? I'm not sure there is.
Yeah, I think the Belgium. Is there one with Belgium, Italy, and Sweden in it?
Yes, that's probably it.
Yeah. There's always, because when Italy were put in pot two, I think that group that they came out in was always going to be a tough group.
Yeah.
And then there's Sweden in there as well, who've got the Zlatan factor, and they've got some good players, and they've looked okay in parts. And Zlatan, it'll probably be his final tournament, so he'll want to make a splash. I think that group is the toughest one.
Yeah, and feel a little bad for the Republic again. I mean, last time they made it, they went to the Euros. Their fans put on a show, and they crashed out in spectacular fashion. They just weren't good enough. I imagine they're going to have as much problem with this group as they did back in 2012.
Yeah, but the thing is, at least in this particular format of the tournament, there's 3 teams can go through, so every point they can pick up will be valuable. So they might better sneak through. Then they could get, you never know. Once you get into knockout football, we've seen time and time again, anything can happen. And I don't want to be too cliche sort of ridden, but every point is valuable in that tournament format because the best third place teams go through as well. So all is not lost for them. But it's going to be tough. But then the European Championships is traditionally a very high standard. Yeah. And it's tough anyway.
Very quickly, so Group B, England, Russia, Wales, Slovakia. I imagine that England is far and away the favorite in that group, or at least a significant favorite over someone like Russia or Slovakia, and that means pressure at home. Is this an England team that can handle it?
Probably not, but I think Wales will give them problems because Wales will become really motivated. I wouldn't be surprised if that finished a draw. I think England should have enough about them to get through the group at least. I don't think Russia and Slovakia are too good. I mean, it's just not the Russia of 2008, is it? So it should be okay. As an England fan, I'm fairly happy with the group. Actually, I think the Wales game will be really interesting and give us a lot to think about and a lot to get excited about. And the other two games are eminently winnable, and we avoided Italy. So there's a lot to be positive about. I mean, it's when England get into the knockout stages, they tend to struggle. So it'll be fascinating to see how Roy Hodgson sets them up and what team he picks and what he can do about the Rooney problem, because Rooney's his captain. So as things stand, Rooney will start the first game, and he's nowhere near good enough to do that at the moment. So he's got a lot of questions to answer, and I'll be there to pass judgment when he does.
Just quickly, Group A is the home side, France's group. Romania, Albania, and Switzerland, so a good draw for France. And Group F is fascinating to me because Iceland's down there, and I like Iceland a lot. They are obviously a big underdog in the world football based on the small population of their island, and they've turned out all of these players. Portugal, Austria, and Hungary in Group F with Iceland, definitely worth watching. All right, Luke, so again, the other draw very quickly, the Champions League draw. I think, obviously Arsenal has to feel a lot of pain today coming out of this draw based on the fact that they get the defending champion Barcelona. There's some pretty juicy ties here. Juventus and Bayern Munich, I think, is pretty fun. Roma ends up with Real Madrid. That's probably not good for the Italians. Where else are you looking at this draw?
Juventus Bayern is an interesting one, because Juventus have started really slowly, but they're starting to come into form now. If they can keep that form up until the game against Bayern Munich, there might be some joy in there for them, because I saw Bayern Munich against Mönchengladbach a couple of weeks ago, and Bayern absolutely smashed them in the first half but couldn't score. And in the second half, they're actually quite poor. They ended up losing 3-1. And Mönchengladbach are a good team, but I would rate Juventus as better than them on balance, and I think there might be a bit of joy for Juventus there. I mean, and I say this every time there's a Champions League draw about Arsenal and sometimes about Man City. Don't win your group. Yeah. You're going to get a tough draw. It's as simple as that, really. It's unfortunate they've got Barcelona, but, I mean, what did they expect? This is a knockout phase of Europe's premier club competition, and they haven't won the group, and in actual fact, they're very lucky to be in the knockout phase, and they've done well to turn it around. But you can't complain about getting Barcelona.
No, certainly not.
They could have got someone a bit tougher, but a bit easier. But I mean, that's the writing's on the wall, and that's the currency they're dealing in at the moment. I mean, they want to do well in Europe. They got to beat these teams.
Well, and City, you mentioned winning your group important. City wins their group, they get Dynamo Kiev. Exactly. That's favorable for them, and there's going to be a lot of expectation for them to win this and go into the quarters.
Well, the only sort of downside you can think of for Man City on that front, by the way, is the fact that I think Dynamo Kiev's game in Kiev with Man City have to be played behind closed doors, and that includes City fans. So they're not going to be able to cheer their team on in Kiev, which I think, or wherever it's going to be played, which is unfortunate for them. But other than that, it's a plum draw. You couldn't handpick a better one, I wouldn't have thought.
Yeah, there's a lot of hand wringing over the empty ground situation for that game. We'll see what happens with it. Luke Moore from the world famous Football Ramble. Excuse me. Make sure you check out thefootballramble.com, and his show and his show with his colleagues is on SiriusXM FC here in the United States. So go check that out as well. Luke, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you as always. Nice to talk to you.
Good stuff from Luke. Let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll wrap up this edition of Soccer Morning here on WorldSoccerTalk.com. Don't go anywhere. Be right back.
Wide awake in the middle of the desert.
I can't get enough of myself.
Welcome back to Soccer Morning on World Soccer Talk with Jason Davis.
All right, here we go. Closing out a Tuesday edition of the program here on WorldSoccerTalk.com. Make sure you check out worldsoccertalk.com. Make sure you check out Soccer Morning on Twitters. My own personal account is DavisJSN if you want to listen to me babble mostly about soccer, but occasionally I'll throw in some other stuff because I do other stuff. I watch TV and I go to places that have stuff and I see that stuff and then I comment about that stuff. That's the way Twitter works. That's the way. And I'm also on Instagram. If you totally want to see my cool pictures on Instagram, I always pick the best filter. Like, you have no idea. No, I'm just kidding. Whatever. I'm on Instagram as well. Follow me there, DavisJSN. All right, we are, as I said, we're wrapping up a Tuesday edition. Good stuff there from Luke Moore. I didn't get to Bosman. That's okay. We ran out of time. Bosman not necessarily top of mind in terms of current events on the field, but top of mind because of the anniversary 20 years ago and the landscape change it brought in the world of player movement in football. So, go contemplate that. And in fact, what you need to do is go follow my friend Leander Schlackens on Twitter at Leander Alphabet and go read his story where he went to Jean-Marc Bosman's house and sat down and talked to Bosman for a while and spent a day with him. And it was really weird, and Leander's a great writer, so he expressed the weirdness in a fantastic way that is fun to read. So do that, okay? That's what you should do today. That's your assignment for today. If you have SiriusXM, you need to be over at SiriusXM FC Channel 85 in about 55 minutes when we start Soccer Morning. Should be a good one today, lining up guests and the like as usual. All right, am I done? I think we're done. I think we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up. Thank you again to Luke Moore from the Football Ramble for his contribution on today's program. Thank you to our callers. We had numerous callers there in that opening segment, or that second segment. Keep it up, people. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.
Did my invitations disappear? What I put my heart on every cursive letter.